So a question that I'm often asked, like on a regular basis, I guess, is what's your best evidence? Like if you like, give me your best shot. Essentially, is the essence of the question. What's your best evidence for the truth of Christianity? And there's various ways you can answer this. I did the 9 arguments just a little while ago, the philosophical defenses for the truth of Christianity, and for what it's worth, from the intellectual standpoint, those who are real deep into actual philosophy as well as material science, fine tuning, and um, intentional design tends to be the two strongest things that convert. Antony Flew is one, more recently, that wrote 40 books on the subject of atheism and changed his mind because of intentional design theory into a theist. So that's one thing. But from the layman standpoint, when we're talking about someone, just random person that you're working with at work, or that you are like a student or a teacher or something, what's the best evidence for a person like that? And from what I've seen and what I find most convincing when I reflect on it the most is the continuing triumph of Christianity despite the amount of pressure and persecution that it's experienced throughout time. And that wording, the triumph of Christianity, comes from a book by David Zachariah Flanagan. And so I'll be mentioning a lot of things that he directly cites here. But also, there's a sociologist of religion named Rodney Stark that covers this kind of information really thoroughly as well. And simply that there are religions in this world that are older than Christianity. Judaism is the obvious first pick on that, but also Hinduism and Buddhism and Shinto has some deep roots into it. A lot of ancestral, aboriginal, and indigenous beliefs are older chronologically than Christianity is. So it's not about just how long a faith has been on this planet, but what that faith has had to endure, what its believers have had to endure throughout its existence. And so when Christianity was born, it was born into a hostile territory, being the Roman Empire, and into a hostile faith zone, essentially, because it was dominated by Judaism primarily. And both of these sides, politically and religiously, persecuted it violently. We know this because one of its most prolific persecutors on the religious front was named Paul, originally named Saul, but he changed his mind. And it is necessary for those who disagree with Christianity to justify that change in his opinion. And if it's just, well, he just changed his mind, and that's as deep as you're going to go to it, Christianity is false, how in the world, why would he do that? As a devout Jew, why would he change his mind? And why would he go, not only change his mind, but go from such a violent persecutor to such a prolific preacher of that same message? What changed his mind? And then additionally, in discussing changed minds, the disciples went from absolute cowards, hiding, having abandoned this man that they would go on to defend so passionately. They abandoned him and then went on to almost every single one would be martyred, and all of them would suffer for that same man's claims. What changed their minds? What would have the kind of indomitable force of will upon them that they would change their minds like this, never being the same? What did it? And then additionally, How is it possible that Christianity would take root the way that it did, to the point where the Roman Empire is dead and gone, but Christianity is orders of magnitude larger than it ever had dreamed possible? How did that happen? Despite organized persecution from the state itself, from religious persecution, from disorganized persecutions on the local level, how is it that Christianity was able to be able to proliferate throughout the Roman Empire despite its opposition? How is it able to do that? And then often, most of the time, when a empire falls, the believers in whatever religion that those citizens of that empire fell, they will renounce whatever it is that they believed in and accept whatever was new. So, why is it that the believers of Christianity in Rome continued to believe in Christianity even though the empire got dissolved? Why did they do that? Because, no one believes in Babylonian or Mesopotamian or Egyptian polytheisms anymore. Nobody believes in those things, or the Canaanite paganisms, or even in the Norse, Mayan, Aztec religions. Like, why would none of them believe? Because as soon as a people is conquered, they absorb whatever is brought to them as new. Yet when Rome was conquered, they did not change their beliefs into the Huns or into the Mongols or into any of those things. They were conquered later by the Muslims, by the sword. We know that. But how is it that Christianity was able to fill in the space and then continue thousands of years after the fall of that Roman Empire? How is that possible? It's just questions you have to wrestle with, that you have to answer. And just, well, it's not true. They were silly, old-fashioned, ancient peoples. They didn't know anything about anything, is not sufficient to explain that.